Welcome, this is David the Real Med White, and you read the title, you know what this video is going to be about, so let's just get done with it very quickly. This is supposed to be pretty simple at the very least. This video is going to be primarily about attacking a Roman Catholic position on the nature-person distinction. So my argument is that the Roman Catholic position does not make a distinction between essence, substance, nature, right? These are all synonymous. They don't make a distinction between nature and person. And thus that leads to various different heresies. So in order to prove that, I will be citing Roman Catholic Apologists. I will be citing Thomas Aquinas, who's a big guy in Roman Catholic circles, basically. I'm sure everyone will agree. And I will be citing Roman Catholic dogma to prove my point. So Denzinger 389 is precisely talking about what I'm talking about. It says that we believe and confess that God is the simple nature of divinity, and that it cannot be denied in any Catholic sense that God is divinity and divinity is God. So all of the, right, stuff like wisdom, eternality, oneness, right, these are all predicated to God ultimately and to his divine nature. And I think there's a very sufficient proof that this is exactly what it talks about, because later in the slide, in Denzinger, I believe this is in Denzinger, I might be wrong, but it points out that Gilbert of Poitiers actually argued that there is a real difference between divine persons and a divine essence. This was rejected in the Council of Rheims in the 12th century, and as you can see in the footnotes, Denzinger, right? And for those who don't know, Denzinger is the book on Roman Catholic dogmas, right? So it points out Denzinger 389. That showcased that. So Denzinger, this quote encompasses what I'm talking about as well. But let's look at what a particular Roman Catholic said about this. He says that Rome is correct in rejecting a real distinction between ousia and hypostasis, right? Ousia meaning substance, nature, right? And hypostasis meaning person. He then says this is standard traditional triadology. Really? That's a very laughable claim. Anyone that reads St. Basil, the Cappadocians, and the Trinity will know that. But this is not what I'm going to be tackling in this video. And then he says Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are all equal to the... Now, the tweet that he sent, the Rome was correct, that tweet, he deleted it afterwards in a couple minutes because he realized how stupid he looked, how stupid he sounded by saying things like this. So, right, we have Roman Catholic dogma, and now we're going to have Thomas Aquinas himself. Now, I'm not going to read the entire thing, but basically, the objections propose a distinction between person and essence, and the reply to the objections is basically refuting that notion. And he even says that in order to protect divine simplicity, we cannot have any distinctions in the Trinity, in the divine nature. And then he says in reply to objection 3, the divine persons are named hypostasis, but not as if they really are hypostasis. I think this is pretty explicit. He even quotes St. Augustine on the Trinitate. Now, this is very interesting because that will be the last thing he will want to quote. Why? Because St. Augustine himself says on the Trinitate that his book is an experimental work. It's not a dogmatic work. He says that I will not be ashamed to learn if I find myself in error. Therefore, let him continue along with me. Whoever with me is certain, let him search with me. Whoever shares my doubts, let him turn to me. Whoever acknowledges his own error, let him rebuke me. Whoever perceives my own. Right? So he essentially is saying that I might be wrong. This is an experimental work, not a dogmatic work, is what St. Augustine says. And him quoting that, to me, is just very strange. It's very bizarre. But now let's get to the meat of this video, right? What this video actually is about. The errors themselves that lead to this. So you might say, David, okay, I understand it. You made your point. Roman Catholic Church doesn't believe that nature and person are distinct. Okay, you made your point. But why does this matter? Tell me why it matters. I'll tell you why it matters. Because this leads to various different errors. If there is no distinction, if they're synonymous, then you have two routes to go for in the triad. If you want to protect that the Trinity is one, right? If you want to protect monotheism of Christianity, you will have to say that there is only one person, because person synonymous with essence, right? And that will lead to modalism and Sabellianism. This is a condemned heresy. If you want to protect the Trinity in terms of personhood, you might say, well, each person in the Trinity has their own substance, right? They're different substances. But that is Tritheism. That is the Tritheism of John Philoponus. But not only this, it also leads to Christological problems, because you have two routes to go. Let's look at the Monophysite route, right? The Monophysite route says that there's only one nature of Christ because Christ is a single person, right? This nature is either divine, which rejects his humanity, it's either human, which rejects the divinity, or it's mixed, which is Eutychian, which is a condemned heresy in the Council of Chalcedon. Or you might take the Nestorian route, condemned in the Third Ecumenical Council, that says that there are two Christs, Third and Fifth Ecumenical Council, by the way, that there are two Christs because there are two natures, right? Utterly ludicrous. This is to be rejected. But now, let's get to the fun part. And this is what the Roman Catholics love. Don't they love that to prove that they're part of the Church Fathers? You see this against Protestantism. They will make fun of Martin Luther. Now, I'm not really emotionally attached to I actually really dislike Martin Luther. But they will make fun of Protestants because, until the 16th century, no one knew the truth, right? No one knew the truth. This is what the Protestants say. But funny enough, what I'm going to be quoting right now, they respond to the exact same argument. As a matter of fact, here is a Twitter group chat screenshot that is debating about this and synergies distinction. And look at the stupidity of Flavius, who says, what if Aquinas is just right and the others are wrong? Right. So what if all the church fathers are wrong on something until Thomas Aquinas enlightened us? Right? Like more than 10 centuries later. This is ludicrous. This is idiocy. More than 11 centuries later. I mean, isn't this the exact same thing that you make fun of church fathers about? Now let us observe the sayings of the church fathers that refute these people like Methed Metoma. Look at what he says. The fathers make bad arguments all the time. Let's look at the supposed bad arguments from the church fathers and how stupid. And this is Protestant. This is in substance Protestant, which is very ironic because Roman Catholics accuse us of Protestantism, even though our entire argumentation is based on the church fathers, such as this one, right? This video is about nature-person distinction. Roman Catholic says that there is no distinction between nature and person. What does St. John of Damascus says? The reason for the heretics' error is they're saying that nature and hypostasis are the same thing. This is on the Orthodox Faith, Book 3. St. Basil, letter 38. He says that there are persons in their study of the sacred dogmas, they fail to distinguish between what is common in the essence or substance and the meaning of the hypostasis arrive at the same notions. The entire letter that St. Basil wrote, some people argued with St. Gregory of Nyssa that wrote this, it doesn't really change anything for me. The entire letter is based on there being a distinction between hypostasis and nature. And if you think I'm lying, if you think I'm making this up, this is the beauty of it. You can look at the description below. You can click the link, St. Basil letter 38, and it links you to Catholic Encyclopedia because you guys love Catholic Encyclopedia. And you can read the letter for yourself. The entire letter is based on distinguishing nature and person. And let's look at St. Maximus. But hold up. But the fathers make bad arguments all the time. I mean, I'm going to get back on this constantly so you understand how stupid this view is. It's so Protestant. It's to me, it's incredibly baffling that you have on the one hand people like Erick Ybarra, who's a literal modalist, and you have people like Methed Metoma, who say the fathers make bad arguments all the time. I mean, really? Anyways, let's not listen to the heretics. Let's listen to St. Maximus the Confessor. In Ambiguous 2, he says, in this passage, the teacher is making a distinction between essence and hypostasis, right? And he affirms this. St. Maximus himself affirms this. And if you read more of St. Maximus's works, this distinction is vindicated. Finally, let's look at St. Cyril of Alexandria, Thesaurus 31. This explicitly refutes What's the beginning of this video? Denzinger 389. This passage from Thesaurus by St. Cyril of Alexandria explicitly refutes Roman Catholic dogma. It says, if what belongs only to God is absolutely also his essence, he will be composed for us out of many essences. For there are many things which belong only to him by nature, and to no other being, for he is king and lord and indestructible. So he is distinguishing not only nature and person, but he's also distinguishing, right? Let's again, once more, let's go back. He's distinguishing wisdom from eternity. He's distinguishing oneness with divinity in God. He's distinguishing all of these things. Denzinger 389 says you can't distinguish these things. Thomas Aquinas says you cannot distinguish anything in the divine essence. It has to be simple in order to protect absolute divine simplicity. Right? So you cannot make any distinctions in the essence. But what does St. Cyril of Alexandria says? That will be stupid. He says it will be stupid. So I hope the church fathers are enough to convince you. I hope the arguments, the logical conclusions that I've showcased here are enough to convince you. And so to summarize this video and what we have talked about here is that the Roman Catholic position holds that the nature and person are synonymous. They're not distinct. The errors of that leads, they're triadological errors and Christological errors. In triadology, you either have Sabellianism, Modalism, or you either have Tritheism. In the level of Christology, either monophysitism is true or Nestorianism is true, not the Orthodox doctrine that they want to profess. And even if they want to say, for example, they might say, well, the two natures in Christ, they're in unison. This is exactly what Nestorius said. It doesn't change anything. This is Nestorius' doctrine too. He believes that there's a union of two persons. Theodore of Mopsuestia was condemned in the Fifth Council. This is exactly his doctrine too. So you can't squirm your way out of this one as well. So the church fathers prove my position. Logic proves my position. God proves my position. I mean, hopefully this is enough to showcase the errors of Roman Catholic dogma. And again, I'm sorry, some of you might not like this language, but the absolute stupidity of some of the Roman Catholic apologists that profess not Christianity. They don't profess Christianity. They profess Judaism and Islam. That's what they profess. Because in professing these doctrines, they're rejecting the Trinity and they're rejecting a proper, authentic, Orthodox Christology. And that will be it for this video. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully you learned something from this video. And I'll see you guys next time. God bless you all.